It was 2 weeks ago when I was last here with you. It was much colder then, and I was scooting in from outside in a hurry because the wind chill values were -30, and it doesn't take long to get frostbitten. But that's only an indication of how quickly we move, not just because it's cold out, but we live in a time when we just want basic information. We want a few facts, a few little sound bites, some texts and some tweets. We make our decisions, we get the information we need, and we get on with things. This is part 2 of Tell Me the Time. I don't want to know how the watch is built. We don't have time for that. And yet I ended the last session asking us about the contrast, asking about the quick fix, give us the information, and how come at times that doesn't feel like enough. And I alluded to John 11:35, shortest verse in the Bible. Jesus wept. Easy to memorize. I still have it memorized. And it tells us something. But what those 2 words don't tell us is the context. What was the situation? What was going on, not just with Jesus, but what was going on around him? I believe at times that's what we miss when we only want quick information. We're in a hurry because a couple words do not provide context. I don't know about you, but there's some words that we use, or at least that I hear used, that really make me kind of wonder, and some days make me even a little bit angry inside. One of those words that I heard today any number of times was perfect. I had bought something and the cashier told me it was $3.83, so I gave the cashier 4 $1 bills, and the response was perfect. Perfect? If I had had $3 and then 83 cents in coinage, maybe that would be perfect. But we use language just to kind of say things. Even during the pandemic, we talk about essential workers. What does essential mean? Who is essential for us? Are we essential? What's the context in which that kind of language gets used? Many of us probably have movies that we like, or things that were said in movies that make an impact. For me, one of those movies is entitled Dead Poets Society. Robin Williams plays the main character. He is an English teacher in a boarding school with all males. And part of the opening scenes is they're reading something about poetry, and it says, how do you measure poetry? And if you put it on a graph and you mark out the graph, the one with the greater area is obviously the better poem. And Robin Williams says one word to all of that: excrement. And he goes on to explain that words and ideas can change the world, because words and ideas, relationships, and he talks about the human nature of love and passion and grief and connectedness, is what fills us as human beings. Words and ideas need to be in context, not just being thrown about like, perfect! You're an essential worker. Why do we think sometimes that everything in life has to be binary? Either or, black, white, winner, loser, rich, poor. can't we make time? And I'm not saying to hear everybody's story since the dawn of time. But don't we have, and can't we say it's important enough to know the context of our relationships? Because if we're hungering, if we feel empty, if we feel during this pandemic time the distancing that in some ways hollows us out, what is it that's missing? More sound bites, quick information, get on the move isn't going to change that. Jesus was weeping because his good friend Lazarus had died. He saw the grief in Mary and Martha's eyes and in their being, and he wept. The context isn't just short, okay, and now I got that memorized, let's get on. It's saying that we have a God who says it's important enough to know us in our context. Not just by our actions, not just by one word kind of things, but who we are in the whole spectrum of human existence. In our current context, I don't think we can, if you want to say, go back. We can't back things up to the way they used to be. We can't go back to normal. Transmissions have reverse gears. People, creation, life, spirit moves forward. It creates. So how do we take what's important in the realities that we have to do things somewhat quickly and efficiently and still fill the human need for relationship? I believe we can do it. We will do it. We have those capabilities. But we need to look at the context. We need to take time to talk to the person who maybe tells us the time and to listen. One of the other people, an author that I've enjoyed, Stephen Covey, one of his principles, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, was seek first to understand, then to be understood. If somebody asks us the time, besides just giving it to them quickly, maybe we could ask where they're going. What are their plans? Not to delay them and not to get into all kinds of background, but to establish a concern, a connectedness, a relationship. That's what's going to fill us. That's what's going to kind of fill in that void we may be feeling during these times of separation and video conferencing. You're watching this, and I know it isn't an interactive time, but even when you are on Zoom or other platforms, it's okay to ask another question, to get to know who it is you're talking to or what's behind the question they may be asking. So we can continue to maintain and strengthen who we are as human beings. Thank you for watching. May you continue in the midst of this kind of shortened, hectic, hurried time to discover context for yourself and for others and be strengthened in your relationships.